Hi there.
Hey.
Hey.
Welcome.
Welcome to Rick's house.
Welcome to his game room, to be more specific.
Yeah.
I'm Tom.
I'm Z. Hi. Come on in.
We're kind of assuming that you're already friends. Mary, maybe this is the first time you've been to Rick's.
You got invited, right?
You hopefully.
Intruder!
Hopefully Rick is
Oh, wait,
here,
that's a different
too.
video. Sorry.
Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, welcome to the extended cut of my 2021 Game Room Tour. Alright folks, and here we are. This is the extended cut of the Game Room Tour. If you want more of an overview, quick in and out, even though that video was a half hour itself, go check my channel for the other video, which is a more condensed overview. Let's zoom this out, because this one, if you're here, this is going to be a deep dive. We're going to be taking a look inside boxes, pulling out stuff that I haven't seen in years, and just a quick walk around first so we get familiar with the area that we're going to be talking about today. So this is my game room. Hello, it's 2020. Now we are moving on. We're not even going to say the other year that it just was, because why when we can focus on the good that is to come? All right, so here we go. Let's start right here as a matter of fact. So if someone is walking down my basement stairs, here's the first thing that they're going to see. Obviously a wall of games, but also this little table. Now I mentioned before, this was originally set up to play two-player games on, and I have in fact done so, clearing this off. Now it wasn't stacked so high with all these knickknacks. This has become where I've put things that I've acquired from festivals, Renaissance fairs, what have you, and it also advertises my snack zone. Folks, I made the graphics, I got the stuff to put this to hype up the fact that there were snacks and a mini fridge down here now, and then of course that year we aren't going to say happened. Anyway, we have a lot of knick-knacky things on here. However, some of this stuff is like, here's a gift, for example, from a couple of friends, a huge dice bag. Certificates and awards. Oh, that's right. You better believe, even if I'm hosting, I'm going to give myself an award if I earned it. For sure. And this Golden Girls Trivia Championship Award means so much to me. Almost as much as surviving the Dungeon of Death. That was a little over a year ago. Cannot believe that was a year ago. Oh my gosh. Remember when I did that video of $1,000 worth of dice? Here's where most of those extra dice wound up. These dice are gorgeous. Go check out that video. They have little mini flowers inside. Lots of odds and ends. I think in the other video I mentioned this was day 24 of the Advent dice calendar that I got from Q Workshop. Solid metal D20, which is just awesome. Lots of other, those little dice are made out of bone. Here's someone, if you're a fan of the Mage Knight miniature game, I just recently got him. Yeah, I'm still collecting for it, and I, am still enjoying it, both the regular version and the Dungeons version. Some friends of mine got me these turquoise dice with like this gold foil inlay. Oh my gosh, it's just gorgeous. This chest is Widower's Wood. That is the Widower's Wood game. You can kind of see it there. It was kind of the more fantasy version of the Undercity, set in the Iron Kingdoms universe. So that is kind of all the stuff that I have sitting there. And then walls of games. All right, so I mentioned this before, and I swear I'm not going to say that 100 times, but here we go. I moved into this house June of 2015 and had a lot of games. If you go back on my channel, you can see my game room that was actually my bedroom in my parents' basement at that time. Transported all these games. It took so many trips full of tubs of games. Laid all these games out on the floor. And got these IKEA Kallax shelves. There was another name for similar shelves Back when I first started collecting games, IKEA replaced it with the Kallax name. I don't know if the shelves themselves changed at all, but there was a previous version of these. But all the rage when I started my hunt for shelves was Kallax. So here we go. This is what I ended up with. 4x4 for these bottom ones. And another one over here. And then I put 2x4s on top of them. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to fill up these shelves. Just get the games off the floor. That was the most important thing. And then I'll organize them later. Well, folks, 90% of these games are exactly where I put them when I put them on the shelf, because no, that never happened. I never got around to organizing them. So, but they're still kind of grouped together. So, for example, the original Arcadia Quest stuff, as well as Riders and some other things, I put all that stuff up in here. And, some older games together over here, a couple Hero Quests together. And you'll notice some patterns, like the Pathfinder adventure stuff is together. But for the most part, there's no rhyme or reason. I wish I could say, yeah, here's exactly how I did this, alphabetical or by box size or whatever. But I think I said, okay, so I won't say that again, that, I put games in these in a economic way. I feel like I really did a decent job of maximizing my use of space. All right, so what do we have across the top? Rune Wars. That's the first edition with the 3D mountains. Absolutely love it. Tumbling dice, fantastic game. Leviathans, kind of steampunky with battleships battling it out in the sky. I Am Vlad. That is a game that hasn't received too many good reviews, but pick that up anyway. We have Dragon Meat. There's a plush of a dragon meat inside that can. Summoner Wars. That was the master set, so that had a bunch of stuff in there. Those little towers are actually from the King's Armory. I just couldn't fit them back in the box if I put them together. Obviously, all the Arcadia Quest stuff, Forbidden Stars, I haven't even played that, but I'm glad I own it because it's not available anymore. Anytime you list your games with Roman numerals or have a set, I'm going to probably want to collect them all. So I haven't even played these, but I had to get all three of them. Prophecy is an older game. There is another edition of it. Was there another? I could have sworn there was a newer edition, but that's the original. Abaddon was a very interesting game. Abaddon is and it's from Toy Vault, but this is insane because this was if I'm remembering it right, it was like the Memoir 44 universe, but set in, not universe, but Memoir 44 kind of gameplay, in the sci-fi realm with mechs and stuff. Am I remembering that right? Richard Borg, yeah, that's right. So battle lore, right? So it's that same kind of thing, but this one got so overlooked. Oh my gosh. And then all the Pathfinder adventure card game stuff, had to get those. And this is the most upsetting thing of all, is that you are going to see the expansion packs tucked away all over the place. I have no clue where they all even are. If I had to go hunt them down right now, I would not even be able to find them all. So here's some more games. Sometimes you will see that they're still in shrink because I was getting games by the pallet load. I will fully admit I was getting them way faster than I could ever play them. And the goal was to collect all these games and then start playing them. And I've done a decent job of that. Not this year, or I should say last year. For sure, that has not happened. But board games don't expire. And unlike people who cull games out of their collection all the time, I understand, space is a concern. For me, it is too. But while I still have the finances and space, I'm not getting rid of anything. I do still have hopes. There is still some hope that I will eventually play everything here. A la carte is a fun food game. We have some more heavier dudes on a map style games over here. And of course, some miniature war games. Frostgrave, love it. Free Blades was a little too much for me. That's a lifestyle game. I've played it a couple of times with the designer, in fact, but it's one of those games where if I'm not constantly playing it, I'm not going to remember it. So I haven't played much of that in recent years. The original Claustrophobia, here's one. Oh my gosh, look at this. You aren't even going to believe this. This is a Dragon Quest dungeon board game with 3D painted figures and monsters and terrain. This cost me, I don't even remember, $700 or something. Long out of print. Huge collector item. Found it at Noble Knight. Untouched. There isn't even anything on the back. You can kind of see here how the board looks. Oh my gosh. This was an absolute find. I don't even know how much it would go for now. But it's kind of like, and there's another kind of a view of it. You set up a dungeon, your opponent sets up a dungeon, and it's almost like Battleship, because then you're giving the coordinates for, where you want your adventurer to move next on your opponents, and they'll tell you what you just ran into and stuff. Oh my gosh, it's insane. Okay, that's one I may not play just because of the value of it. And then lots of small old games, the original Barbarian Prince. These are crazy. These heritage models sets. They were paint sets. They come with paints and a paintbrush, and I still have the paints too. The old, 40-year-old paints, because this is from, I don't even remember when, the 80s at least. And they had these little figures in there. But there was a game that went along with it. So there was a wizard one and a woman warrior one. So how cool is that? This was back when I was first collecting games. And I was collecting this old stuff. And that's why I found a copy of HeroQuest at a thrift store. Can you believe it? Not even a thrift store. It was actually like an antique store, but it was only $35 or something like that, which obviously I know people have found them for cheaper. But if you look on eBay now, it's $100, and they just had that reprint. I was excited about that. But I can't remember where I got one of those HeroQuest copies, if it was on eBay or Noble Knight Games or something. But there's some other games here, like this Fortress game. Thunder Road's a good one, but this Fortress game actually has pre-primed, I guess you could say, because it's just one color, but they are technically pre-painted like lead fantasy figures. I have the cards. I sleeved them and stuck them in here. And but they go with that game. But that has to be one of the very first examples of a painted fantasy figure kind of a game. But I was just gonna take a look at those. So I sleeved all those cards. Obviously there were a couple cards missing, but thankfully they were duplicates of cards that I had, so I just was able to print them out. All right, what else? The Warhammer Shadespire stuff, I got it when it first came out. These are basically the only packs of it I have. There may be some more tucked back in there somewhere, but just that initial release is all I got, and I haven't touched it, and I haven't got any more of the newer stuff. Coconuts is a fun little game. Takanoko, Sushi Go Party are some of my favorites. Pagoda is a great 2-player game. I know I want to start talking about games that I actually have played. Spellcaster is a fantastic 2-player game. It plays more, but really just 2. Wilderness is an interesting game, almost like Barbarian Prince. Medieval Mastery is one of my favorite games. Draco came out with a recent edition. I'll show you the new edition in a second. King and Assassins came out with a new edition, and that's a fantastic 2-player game as well. I know some of these games are so stacked on top of each other, but I gotta show you this. So one player plays the king and his guards trying to get the king to the castle. The other player plays peasants, just a bunch of peasant folk, and you choose ahead of time in the early part of the game which peasants are actually the assassins. I know, isn't that insane? So the king player doesn't know who the assassins are as he's trying to escort the king back to the castle. Age of War is a fantastic dice game. Absolutely love it. Defenders of the Realm, of course. I tried to keep up with that too, but my gosh, they just released so much stuff for it. Dungeon Fighter has a bunch of expansions for it as well. Some party games over here. I stuck this little drawer thing in here for some little dice games. Love for Taverns, one of my favorite games of all time. Same thing with Dwarven Miner. These are both rather dashing games, and they are both fantastic games. Have an updated copy of Dwarven Miner, the newest edition of that as well. Some of the Lego Fantasy Dungeon Crawl games. Here's some. Look up City of Sorcerers. This is a super rare game as well. It's hard to even describe. And then the Cry Havoc series of games. If you like Hex Encounter war games. I love Gaia. Gaia is a great game. So is Ekatorp, if I'm pronouncing that right. Dragon's Gold is one of my group's favorite games. But here we go. A ton of games over here that I absolutely love. So Calimala. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite games of all time. Top 10 of all time. Same with Crown of Emara and Gizmos. These are three of my favorite games of all time. Do enjoy the King's Guild as well. This is the only version of Pandemic I've ever played. The Fall of Rome version where the barbarians come in, and I absolutely love that. Stone Age is great. I want to play Chimera Station because of the way the figures, you build them, worker placement, and the figures you attach, build them up different ways so that the parts you give them do different things. That's just so interesting. I also haven't gotten around to playing Role Player, and I absolutely want to. Same thing with Wildlands. This was another example of a situation where I was buying way more games than I had time to play. But I love the new edition of Kingsburg. Love Heroes of Dominaria. There's painted figures in that one. The updated version of Stronghold. I think I have the original version of Stronghold around here somewhere as well. A whole bunch of just talisman stuff. There is some role-playing game stuff over here. Raycolt. Oh my gosh, I love Raycolt. Wingspan, obviously, so fantastic. Love Wingspan. Love Space Base. Love Tiny Towns. Reef is a great game. And so is Bees, the next game in that kind of line of next move games. Carpe Diem from Stefan Feld. I, haven't played a lot of Feld's games, and I love Carpe Diem. Viticulture still in shrink because people recommended that to me right and left. I need to play that. Dice Forge expansion. The base game is elsewhere. Dice Forge is one of my favorite games of all time. Battleship Galaxies. Oh, that's right. Not your grandma's battleship, that's for sure. Mice and Mystics down there. The Oregon Trail board game. Oh, it's just so much stuff. Oh my gosh. Zularedo, fantastic. Here's a game that isn't so good. The Dragon Ball Z Perfect Cell game. It's basically broken. I don't think it's even possible to lose that game. Wrath of Dragons is a hidden treasure. Look that one up on Board Game Geek. Of course, I also collect some of the Fragger games. Dragon Scroll, love Spellbound, Game of Gnomes. I kind of wanted the more fantasy games. I'm not like a diehard collector of those, but I love these three specifically because of the components and that they're more fantasy oriented. Spectre Ops, Automania, Parfum, those are fantastic. King's Forge is great. Monster Crunch, of course, is amazing. Let's see. Some of these are insane. Cave Evil, Mushroom Eaters. Oh my gosh. Cave Evil. This game is so intense. Does the back of the box even give you an idea of how it looks? It's Hex Encounter, but it's like demons and monsters. Oh my gosh, I love the aesthetics of it. It's like a heavy metal album cover come to life in a game. Mushroom Eaters, as you can imagine, is also just an absolute trip. It's crazy. And then some Hex Encounter actual war games like the Field Commander series for Napoleon, Alexander, No Retreat from GMT, Maneuver, the Space Encounter series, Lost Battles has a textbook in here too, I think, if I remember right. Might and Magic Heroes is one that I really do want to play. Richard Hamzarato's run through of that got me interested in it. Looks like there's a lot going on. I haven't cracked that one open yet. Legends of Andor, Dragon Rage. So this is an example of an old game over here. Look at this. It used to come in this little bitty box. Oh my gosh, it's so packed tight over there. I'm not even going to try to pull it out. But they actually reprinted it in a huge, beautiful package. Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. Fantasy, Hex Encounter, Wargaming. Fallen with some of these expansion packs below it here. These are nuts. This Quest for the Dragon Lords and these expansions. I think it's this expansion here that actually has... Nope, not this one. This one has plastic figures. Is it this? No, that's a 5 to 6 player expansion. Maybe it's this one. One of these has actual metal miniatures, and they're still in their blister packs. And then, of course, the Dungeons and Dragons Adventure Series games. Love those. There was the Dungeon of the Mad Mage one down there. Love that they started to do the pre-painted premium versions. I always get the premium pre-painted version if that's a possibility. Some of the Magic the Gathering board games, Crossmaster Arena. I have like everything for that, including the huge 3D board. That's what's in that box up there. Tower of the Wizard King is a crazy old game. Just toys in a box. With a tower, you put your figure in it, and just like it shows here, and you press down, and your figure will disappear, and in its place will be a different figure, like an orc or something. Let's see here. Risk Legacy. Never even cracked that one open yet. I was always too nervous. I was like, I did have a steady game group, so I was like, we could play this over and over again, but we typically play a different game every time. Myth, Machikoro stuff, The Witcher, Descent 2nd edition, Dungeon Quest Tomb, Escape the Dark Castle. That's what that is in that big black box there. Zombicide, Black Plague, Green Horde stuff down at the bottom. Some other smaller games down there. Way up top there, above that 3D board, is a game called Travel Battle, and that's a Perry Miniatures Napoleonic, tiny little travel-sized war game. Oh, I so wish they would do a medieval and ancients, a fantasy version of that. Oh, that would be amazing. Descent 1st edition is up there. So I think that is a pretty lengthy run-through of everything that is in this board game section, with obviously a lot of exceptions. I mean, I can't go over every single solitary game, but that should give you a good idea of what's in this section. All right, let's move on to another section. All right, just taking a right from over here to over here. So yeah, there's capsule machines everywhere. Specifically, when I was out to do these kind of vending machines, you pick up the machines and then you pick up what you want to put inside them. So obviously I was going to do dragons. And anytime I was picking up something, I had to get this display card, and I absolutely had to have a display card that actually had the actual product in it. That is, as a kid, what always drew me in. So I had to get the display cards that had the actual products in there, like the dragons, like these gemstones that come with a little pouch. And so those are the kind of things that I absolutely had to have. I think I've talked about this before. Ironwind Metals Chaos Wars Kickstarter. I think the second one of those they had the option to name a character. So I named this character, the Undead Warlord. I named him Zelktuvia of the Abyss, and wrote a backstory that has been published in a campaign for him. So that was super exciting. All right, so then these shelves over here, my dad got them for me at an auction somewhere, so I couldn't tell you anything about them other than that they are fantastically modular. This is another example of really trying to squeeze in games everywhere I have even a bit of free space. So we have some bigger games up top. Junk Art, fantastic. There's the Betrayal at Baldur's Gate Dungeons and Dragons version of Betrayal at House on the Hill. Pre-painted figures in there. Pre-painted figures also in that Tomb of Annihilation. That's I think the 5th of the Dungeons and Dragons adventure series games. Still waiting on the 7th. That's what we're waiting on. I haven't heard any word. Folklore. So the common theme here is going to be huge amounts of Kickstarter stuff, most of which I haven't touched. So I backed Folklore, The Affliction. I think they've already ran a Folklore 2nd edition. Folks, time has passed me by. I began collecting games in late 2009, and so I'll have collected games from Kickstarters the following years. And then all of a sudden 5 years later have passed. I haven't even touched the stuff, and they're already running 2nd editions, and it's just a shame. But here's some games that I absolutely have had fun with, like the Conan stuff, as well as Zombicide Black Plague, the first wave of releases for that one. Blood Rage, unfortunately, I have not touched yet. Still in shrink wrap. Love Dungeon Saga. Their Kickstarter allowed me to have anything I wanted pre-painted. What else do I love over here? I love Looters. I love Dragonwood. I love Dragon Farkle. I love Epic Roll. The Bloody Inn, one of my favorite games of all time. These boxes contain painted figures for Cave Evil. Can you believe it? Even rarer than Cave Evil itself are these painted figures. You gotta be in the know. And this year, and actually last year too, I buried my head in the sand. I couldn't do it anymore. I could not keep up with expansions for all these games. New editions of all these games, latest releases, limited editions, Kickstarters. I couldn't do it. I buried my head in the sand and said, what I have is enough. I have barely gotten any games at all this year. Here's some games that I got that maybe I shouldn't have, like Besieged. Yeah, so back when, and I know they're still doing it, but Cool Mini or not, when they were really like back in the beginning, Arcadia Quest, Blood Rage, Zombicide. And then, on the secondary market, they were going for ungodly amounts. So, of course, the one time I say I'm going to buy 2, because if you notice, I don't buy 2 of hardly anything. Like those 2 Conan things, those are 2 separate things. One's a box of expansion content, one's a base game. So I never get 2 base games of anything, very rarely. The one time I go all in on a duplicate copy of everything was Besieged, and that's one of their poorest performing, lowest rated games they've ever done. Leave it to me. I'm sure it's because that I did that ended up happening. I don't know, but Risk Europe, fantastic. 504 from Friedman Fries. Super innovative, way ahead of its time. Got some appreciation, but I bet in the future people will look back and say, oh my gosh. All of these are trading cards. Most of these are Magic the Gathering cards, and I think M10. Isn't that nuts? I was like, when's the last time I collected Magic the Gathering seriously? It probably was M10 because I squeezed it into that binder. So that was 10 years ago. I should probably pick these up because these are complete sets. I used to collect complete sets. So like that's all 3 Urza block. Complete set. Antiquities. Can you believe it? A complete set of antiquities. These go for big bucks these days. I probably shouldn't have it so close to if this room flooded, it wouldn't matter how high up it would be. It'd be ruined anyway. But maybe not so close to the floor. This little thing, if you saw the video I posted about my Battlefields of Mana display case, this little chest, what do they call this? A Davenport or something like that? Was in there, so I had to find other room for it. So I brought it down here, and what I will do now is butt it up against the table and use it as a game master area because it has a writing surface, bowls and cups and drawers. So that's pretty nice. Mage Knight Whirlwind. Pantone is a fantastic little game. Dracaris Dice, of course, The Mind. People have just been blown away when I played the Mind with them. Enchantress, underrated. Dream Home, great. Vegas the Dice Game, amazing. Let's see. I think that covers that one. So then over here, Zaya, one of my favorite games of all time. Celestia is a great little game. The League of Legends Mechs and Minions game was a fantastic surprise, just that it exists. The War of the Ring Collector's Edition. Check out my video unboxing of that. As soon as I got done with that unboxing, I boxed it up, put it up here, and it hasn't seen the light of day again. All this Arcadia Quest Inferno stuff, I really haven't touched much of that, and all the pets. Sheriff of Nottingham, fantastic game. Some Games Workshop stuff. I love that they've done the individual games. I'm way behind on those. I love Ethnos. Really want to get Dragon Valley to the table. Kalis is amazing. Jamaica, Rise of Augustus. Really want to play Barony because that's Marc Andre. That's Splendor. That's Majesty for the Realm. I want to just jump over here real fast because did I forget about that? Yeah, Majesty for the Realm is over there. Love that game. Marc Andre. I didn't even realize Barony was Marc Andre. That's awesome. All this sword and sorcery stuff. Haven't touched it. Scythe. Haven't touched Scythe either. All this the others stuff. Shrink wrap. Haven't touched it. WarQuest. One of my first Kickstarter games, also backed the 5-player expansion. This is, I believe, the first game I ever played when I started hosting game nights in this house, and my game group universally loved it. We've played it. This game may be the game we've played the most of any game in this game room is WarQuest. They fixed it. There was an issue with balance somewhat in the original version. My group really never found a problem with it, but whatever there was, they did fix it in the 5th player expansion Kickstarter, but it was too little too late. You can't even find this anymore. Check out my videos of the unboxings. I think I even have some after action gameplay of WarQuest. Love WarQuest. Love Mythotopia. One of my favorite games of all time, Mythotopia. Adventureland is a great game. Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea got it all. They've released more stuff since, but the initial offering was this. I have not touched that. Have not touched any of my 7th Continent stuff. That goes way in the back of those shelves too. Dice Forge, there it is. One of my favorite games of all time. Love Fleet Commander. I have the Century games, which are awesome. I only have the first 2 of, I believe, each. Golem Edition and the original. And of course, you got to have these TV trays next to the game table. Splendor and Cities of Splendor. On Christmas Day, that's what I did. I took these over to my parents' house. We played 6 games of Splendor. First with just the base game, then the next 4 were one of each of the 4 modules of cities, and the 6th game was, I said, hey, which module did you like best? And we'll play that again. Love all of the Cities of Splendor stuff. I personally liked it all. I know some people didn't like the Stronghold ones. I loved Cities of Splendor Strongholds because I was like, you get your engine going to the point where you are basically buying 2 cards a turn for free. It was just awesome. Here we go. All right, let's start over here then. So here's some more Capsule Machines. Oh my gosh, absolutely love these, of course. Love, finding things to put in the machines was part of the fun. These orb bots, they are in the capsules like this, and then you break off the pieces like a sprue and put together these robots. And then Brick Ops, knock off Lego. These fortune dice are just fun. And then these little war bots and these little poo emojis. And then here's all these games. Some of my favorite games of all time are over here. Chaosol up there is one you don't hear about a lot. There's a copy of Battle Masters. I need to break that out just for the fun of it. Lay that huge mat across the floor. Agricola, the first designer board game I ever got, 2009. Oh my gosh, or early 2010, and that's what started it all, was Agricola, and that's my original copy from way back then. Played that a lot. It's been my number one favorite game for a while. Would it be if I did my list right now? I don't know. That would be nostalgia talking, I think, if I did. It'd still be top 10 at least. Some huge games up here I absolutely love. CO2, and also the second edition. Castle Merchants, Lords of Waterdeep, Castle for All Seasons. Speaking of seasons. Flashpoint Fire Rescue, Thunderstone Advance, Spells of Doom. There's the original Fleet Commander. There's Black Fleet, one of my favorite games of all time. Kingdom Builder, Master Builder. Love Master Builder. Merchants of the Middle Ages. So that is what we have over here. And again, here's the table. I don't know if I talked about this much in this video, but this is a BoardGameTables.com table. Lift this up. It's a recessed playing area under there. Every player has a drawer. If I could go back in time, I would add cup holders. And my parents got me this night lamp from an antique store. Absolutely love him. I highly recommend. I don't know what the model is, so I shouldn't even mention it, but if you ever see what this is, these Bose speakers, I have one of these on every floor of my house. So there's 3 of these, and they sync together through an app. You can raise and lower the volume on each one individually through the app, so I can have music or ambiance going through my entire house. You know, I could turn on just the top floor and the basement and leave the middle floor one off. Whatever you want to do, highly recommend these. They fill the whole floor and sound great. Look at this little box. It kind of spins open like that, and I have some dice in there. There's dice everywhere. I also love coasters. Picked up some coasters, some more coasters. These dice are awesome. And of course, got to have dice trays. There's dice everywhere you look, of course. Warriors and Wizards poster. I got that poster first, and then someone saw it and said it's a video game, and then they gave me the video game. Someone gave me that NES, someone gave me that Super Nintendo, and gave me games. And then I went out and bought some more games. But yeah, so that's what's going on over here, is just some old school gaming going on, and some controllers and games in this drawer here, just to keep things tidy. And then, of course, as we mentioned earlier, the snack zone, the poor unfortunate snack zone. Bins would be full of Pringles and Doritos and Funyuns and cookies, and then this would be full of pop, water, beer, and it lights up, illuminated. Of course, it's all unplugged now because I haven't had, apart from family a time or two, I haven't had anyone else over here for a game since, like March. And then here, this display cabinet, the front door slides left or right. It's locked right now, but that has just a bunch of painted figures in it. This classic dungeon is sealed. Can you believe it? Still in shrink wrap because a friendly local game store, fallen on hard times during the pandemic. So people were donating games and they would sell them to, bring in some extra income. Well, someone donated that, and I swooped in and saw it there, and yeah, it was kind of pricey. It was like $80, but I'm like, when am I going to find another shrink wrapped copy of that? Gotta have it, because if you know me, you know I love the old stuff. So I also have this Armoire, which you can close it up and it just looks like grandma's cupboard, but it is so fitting when my original intent was to just store these old painted fantasy figures and all these old games. At one point, this thing was full of nothing newer than 35-year-old or older tabletop games. Now, I ran out of room, so I've stuffed other things in here too, but it's mostly old stuff, old Avalon Hill stuff, old role-playing game stuff, Amber Dice List. Take a look at that. But look at this. I mean, Magic Realm, Divine Right, Dragon Pass, Dawning Empire. These are old school, and I am so happy to have collected, because that's how I started board gaming. I wasn't collecting the latest releases. I was collecting these old fantasy games just to have. And then that's when I found the new stuff. This is also where I'm storing all of my clever paper miniature wargaming buildings. I have a lot more I just got for Christmas that I need to put together. Here's some more of that I built it terrain. Here is miniature building authority terrain. Over here in this corner are more vending machines, and these are the best. These shouldn't be tucked away in a corner. I miscalculated, when I decided to fill these up with what I did, because these are beaver machines. And if you know anything about vending machines, beavers are like one of the top of the line for their coin mechs and just their operation in general. So there's a big 2-inch capsule. There's a couple of 1-inch capsules. And of course, our little skeletal dragon friend down here. And some more I Built It buildings on display there. Here is just a little thing where I am displaying some of my favorite Dungeon Saga figures. And these paint jobs were the ones done when you pledged and you wanted the painted pledge. This is the paint job. And it's unbelievable. I could not believe how amazing these ended up looking from, just the Kickstarter paint job. Okay, so obviously here's a big part of what I am all about. When I first was doing my game room in my parents' basement, I did this display case and this grid wall to have this like game shop set up. And here's a little thing where I store all my sleeving supplies. If you've seen an old video of mine, that I collected everything for the original fantasy trip, including some cool things like that poster and some figures. And then they had the Kickstarter, and I lost my mind. So I had to get multiples of everything. It was even me, not to boast, but yeah, it was, because I reached out to Steve Jackson Games and said, can we please have the retail display of these? Even if I have to pay as much as a normal consumer, can that at least be an option for us to have this retail display? And they said yes. And so that has made it into my game shop display. I also picked up just an absolute ton of these Ogre $2.95 pocket editions. And that's not all of them. I mean, there's a whole stack of them. I got 40 copies of them. People were like, what the hell? That's just me being me. You know me, got to hoard everything. And then this dice container. Look at this. I love this for displaying dice. Anyone needs a D4, come right on over. Now, if you recognize some of these from that calendar, that Dice Advent calendar, yeah, that's because these are some of the dice from that calendar. D4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, percentile, Magic the Gathering spin down life counters. I spent like $1,000. No, I didn't. I spent hundreds of dollars one time buying a bunch of Pokemon and Magic the Gathering cards to hand out booster packs for Halloween. And the game shop just gave me a bunch of these spin down life counters. Game Science sharp edge dice in here. Other random D6s. Something for a little project I was working on. I wanted this bin to hold those dice. Here's just some rounded edge random dice. Some more bizarre dice, like you may have seen Dungeon Crawl Classics, got the posters here and there. I used to collect for that until I just couldn't keep up with them. But they take all sorts of crazy dice. They need D17s and all sorts of things. So I got a couple sets of those. And then some bizarre dice like Day of the Week dice or Rock, Paper, Scissors dice or a 10 Commandments dice. And if you remember, dragon dice used to be a thing. I had some of those in there. And then, of course, just boxes of dice. And no, these absolutely can be used. I just keep them in these little containers for fun. And then here's that whole 7-die set of the winter dice from that calendar. Little tiny dice. Some of those cool dice. And then, of course, all these booster packs of defunct games and starter decks and whatnot, and all these Dungeons and Dragons figures. When those came out, I was like, are you kidding me? And then here we go. Look at this. I got these at Walmart. They were selling role-playing game dice, and they had pouches, and I was like, what? And so, like, back in the day, here's an old copy from the Armory. They used to sell these kits that had, this was way before my time, polyhedral dice with a little dice bag pack. So that was from, the 70s or 80s or whatever. And then here we go, 2020, now doing kind of the same thing, different company, but so I just thought that was cool. So I grabbed a bunch of those for the quote unquote store we have set up here. And then all these figures, these are Free Blades figures. And most of these were blue table painted, but actually I think I forgot to mention last time that these snow ones are Brandon Palmer. He is a fantastic miniature painter. All right, so what else is in here now? So like I said, when I was looking at my Magic cards, I was like, I could not believe how expensive some of these are. Like this Unlimited Mox Jet. I got it on eBay. It was advertised as near mint a decade ago. I picked it up for $200. And it is in great condition. I should have it graded, because you look now, completed listings for this card all scratched up are $1,700. So that's at least a $2,000 card right there. That's absolutely insane. I probably shouldn't say that. No one, I have a great security system, by the way. All right. Anyway, so we have Warhammer figures painted for me by, I think it's paintedfigs.com or something like that. These were the first figures I ever had painted for Warhammer it was a Battalion of the Empire, Battalion of Bretonia, and then again some of those little tiny figures. I know it's hard to see through the glass, of the Fantasy Trip. Can you believe it? Tunnels and Trolls, old edition copy. Some of this other stuff is really crazy, like this first edition Dungeons and Dragons reprint wooden box set. My parents got that for me for Christmas years ago, and I've left it in shrink, and my gosh, you check the value on that now. And then down here's just a bunch of extra stuff. Look at all these decks of rat splatter. You know what that is? Noble Knight Games. I don't know if they still do it, but back when I was purchasing games en masse, they had a 1-cent bin basically on their website, where for every $15 you spent or something like that, you could add a 1-cent item. And so this tells you how many times, and this wasn't all, but I placed a lot of orders with Noble Knight Games. You could only, I can't remember if it was one of each item or if I could do multiples in a single order, but yeah, that's not even all the decks of rat splatter I have. And then a bunch of old card games like Towers in Time, Dark Age, battle cards. There's the rest of those ogre ones. And of course this Wyvern starter decks, booster packs, this Insider's Guide, which is super rare and in shrink, goes along with Ricky's Windbreaker. Can you believe it? I couldn't believe I found that on eBay. Let's go around back here and finish up this portion of the video with what's back here. So this is all figures. Huge Battle Foam Black Label case full of Arrows and Blades figures. These four, and there's videos on all of this. Warriors of Mana figures in there. Warriors of Mana in this tub. This is of Arrows and Blades stuff in there. Blades in the Deep in there. So this is all games of my own design that I keep in these containers. Look at this. Dollar Tree selling polyhedral dice. I picked up like 40 packs of those dice. Dollar Tree also selling packs of 10d6. I picked up a bunch of those. This retail display, I think I said this in the other video, but I mean Don't get me started on this. Legendary encounters from Reaper. They were going to hold, I swear, years ago, they said they were going to hold a Kickstarter. They never did. My questions on their Facebook page go unanswered. I just have a feeling. And they stopped selling the Legendary Encounters pre-painted figures a while ago. So I have a feeling that's dead. But I was so thrilled. You know me and pre-paints. And these looked fantastic. Bunch of Battletech figures. And of course, my Roll for Initiative figures. I need to get a lot more of those. Then just a bunch of knick-knacky things. This is the Game On board game backpack, which holds a ton of games. A friend of mine got that for me for Christmas or my birthday one year. Fantasy trip stuff. They have so many Kickstarters now for these zines and adventure packs. I can't keep up with it. And some more stuff down there. All right, so I think that is where we will end it here for this section, and then just stay with me and I will restart this on a new section. All right, folks, and we've taken another right just to the right of the display case. Here is this. So this was Blue Table Painting, painted all of these Warhammer Fantasy figures for me. Empire and Orcs and Goblins. And this display was also in my parents' basement when I was doing it. And all these custom kingdoms, buildings, and trees. Every video that I have of these trees, check the comments. Check the Warlock Tiles video I did on the village sets where I had those trees. There are comments asking about the trees. Every video I do about those trees, people love them. And they're out of business. Custom Kingdoms is out of business, unfortunately. Miniature Building Authority figures from some of their castle Kickstarters. They had the option to get those painted. I don't think they've done that since. So glad that I took advantage of that. Little tiny figures. I actually painted these myself. Don't look too closely at those. They're not very well painted. This was my friend Billy, a little memorial I did. He passed away earlier this year. Oh my gosh. I loved playing games with him. We would bounce ideas. He was coming up with his own game. He would help me play test my game. This was some shots of him playing Warriors of Mana with me, and we would mark on the map every time we won a battle. I was yellow, he was red. He was beating me so bad in the end, but we only got to play 6 games. We left it tied 3 apiece. Oh, I miss him so much. He was also hugely into Zaya. I introduced Zaya, Legends of a Drift System, to him. That's what got him into tabletop gaming. And he loved it. He went out and got his own copy. I don't remember a single time ever having introduced someone to a game and they loved it so much they went out and bought it themselves. That's because I typically host all the time, so I have all the games. I guess that's why people don't get them themselves. Otherwise, maybe they just don't like them. But yeah, that was the one instance of a friend loving a game so much he went out and got it and has played it with other people too. So I don't know what ever ended up happening to his copy. Hopefully his roommate or his brother or someone has it and are cherishing it. All right, so here is kind of my overflow of games, and these are my newer acquisitions, specifically because 2020, I played a few games, had just a handful of game nights in the first quarter of the year, and hadn't picked up a single 2020 release. I mean, at Walmart, I think I found this. This is technically a 2020 release. Haven't cracked that open yet. For Christmas, my parents got me Tiny Towns Expansion Villagers. I picked up this Sugar Blast game on a whim, but I think that was pretty much it. Then I decided I got a gift card for Christmas, went to the game shop, my friendly local game store, decided to look at some 2020 releases. I did a lot of research ahead of time because a lot of top 10 lists had already kind of come out or people were discussing things. A lot of lists mentioned Calico and then Bees. And the reason I even looked at Bees was because this is the same line, essentially, as Reef. I don't know why I walked all the way over here just to do this. Not designed by the same person, but they're both Next Move games. And they're 4 letters, just like Azul is also in that line. But I'm not a big Azul guy. But I love bees. Oh my gosh. So you are literally this 3D bee miniature buzzing around collecting nectar. You can't fly forward. That's what that little cancel sign is. But see those other numbers? You have to turn the bee in that direction and you can fly that number of spaces, 1 to 5, 2 to 4, etc. And so wherever you land and collect pollen, however many spaces you moved, that's where you put the collected nectar in that specific row. And then there's scorecards based on the patterns you created, folks. It's a fantastic family weight game. That's bees. Calico. Isn't this adorable? This little cat. You think this is a cutesy little game? Folks, this is one of the most brain-burny games I've ever played. Yes, the theme is creating a quilt to attract cats to lay on it. And I'm not kidding when I say that. But there's so many ways to score. Some of these cats want patterns in certain orders. Then there are these little buttons that gets placed if you have a certain number of colors. And then on each player's board, there are, and this back image actually doesn't show, but there are different ways that they want patterns and colors to score around your mat itself. So, I mean, you have so many things to keep in mind, but it's fantastic. Those are both 2020 releases. Obviously, those are probably the only 2 games from 2020 I've played. So there's my top 2, folks, of 2020 right there. And then we mentioned Draco earlier, so they came out with a reprint of Dragons versus Dwarves, and then they came out with another one, Knights and Trolls. Those are both fantastic 2-player games. Haven't cracked Unmatched out of the packaging yet. That's another one that there's a bunch of expansions for. I'm like, do I keep up with it? I haven't even cracked it open yet. I already gave up on the Funko Pop game because I wanted that so bad. I wanted the Golden Girls, because I'm a Golden Girls trivia champion, don't forget. I wanted the Golden Girls Funko so bad, fighting the Kool-Aid Man in Harry Potter. But there's so many expansions now. I'm like, when am I ever going to play it? So I've kind of given up on collecting it. Escape the Dark Sector. Now, I enjoy it, not as much as Escape the Dark Castle. My friends, one of their favorite games of all time is Escape the Dark Castle, and one of my favorites too. So Escape the Dark Sector takes that into space, but adds some mechanisms that I'm not a huge fan of. So there's a close combat and a ranged combat, and if you take a close combat action, you can no longer engage in ranged combat. It's a situation where I don't know, it's not as smooth as the original. The original was just fun because you knew what you had to do. You had a die, just roll that die and see what happens. This one, you have ammunition dice and explosive dice and all sorts of different things. Still fun, doesn't hit the same mark for me as Escape the Dark Castle, however, so I skipped the expansion Kickstarter because, they've already had the expansion Kickstarter for the collector's box and expansions for that. But I said no, so I'm just going to stick with the base game on that one. Some of my other favorite games down here include Era, Dust in the Wings, Quacks of Quedlinburg, and Little Town. Absolutely love Little Town. Here's that Dwarven Miner Reforged, and this is a shame. I actually am not a huge fan of it. I love the new Larry Elmore art and the dice that are etched instead of stickers, but I am actually going to stick with my original version, if you can see it from here, which you probably can't, but I love it. Also, Point Salad is a great game. Just One is a great game. There's the new King and Assassins. This one has miniatures in it instead of standees. Now, that's going to be a little tougher to understand who's who, because the standees were colored, and these are all just gray, but I couldn't believe it. They were coming out with a deluxe edition of King and Assassins, one of my favorite 2-player games, with miniatures. I just need to have them painted. All right, so then speaking of painted figures, here's some figures I painted. Now, Drawers. Do we want to go through all these drawers? Just take my word, there's something in every drawer. Let's go through it fast. Dice and dice bags. Here are some tokens for free blades and some other things. Here are some WizKids pre-painted miniatures. Here are some more. Here are some big ones. Here are some more. Here are some more. Here are some Battlefields of Mana, Warriors of Mana stuff. So here's glass tokens, more glass tokens, life countdown dials, line of sight lasers, tape measures, skull tokens, rulers. Also, don't tell anyone. Here's all the keys to my vending machines. Warhammer templates and measuring sticks. And here's where I was actually at one point doing a top 100 games of all time. So I had them all on these things. And I was doing the Tom Vassal method where I'd have them in a deck, pull out a game. All right, Shadows over Camelot. And then I would pull out the next game. Okay, Coconuts. Do I like it more or less? And I would put them all in a line. And games kept coming out, and I could never finalize it, and I gave up on it. Here's my quarters for the machines and a bunch of dice bags and token bags. Here is some storage containers. Here's a bunch of token bowls and a bunch more token bowls. And then down in here is toilet paper and a tape player, a lint roller, and a dice tower. This acrylic sheet, of course, is fantastic if you're playing with paper mats. This is a fold-up table. It's 4x6, so perfect for tabletop wargaming. And of course, here is all of my Mage Knight booster pack. Not all of them, but a decent chunk of them, because I love collecting. Mage Knight was the first tabletop miniatures game I ever encountered when I was like 12 years old in 2001. And I fell in love with it. It died out shortly after. I was never into 2.0. I collected for it. I just did not like it. It ruined the simplicity of original 1.0 Mage Knight. So now, as an adult, I decided to go hog wild and collect all of these Mage Knight boosters, starters. There's a demo display kind of thing back in there. This whole thing pulls out. It's on wheels, so if I ever do want to pull it out, I can. And I have some posters with the figures on there. But that is pretty much it for that section. All right, so next up, we are going to go into the utility room and see what we can find in there. All right, folks, here we go. Employees only, and boom. Let's take a quick peek around before we start deep diving. All right, so yes, this is my utility room, the utility room of the house, which is a pretty decent size, right? I mean, it fits this huge dining room table, and I mean, I'll back out and you can see there's still plenty of room to spare. Now, I posted a video not too long ago, a couple months ago or something like that, where I totally redid all of this. So it made it easier to access some things, but also all this walking space. Can you believe it? All right, so I just wanted to do that, give you a full-on overview. Here's what we're working with. All right, now let's move in. Now let's get down to brass tacks. So this table is actually my grandparents' dining room table, who had no more use for it. It extends out, and I have a couple more chairs. There's one at the desk and one in the back corner you can kind of see. So it could fit 8 people comfortably in here. Can you believe it? And yes, I have had game night in here before. All right. Here's a workbench. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm not a huge fan of painting my own stuff, but I do occasionally, as well as mostly terrain. I like doing some of my own terrain. But anyway, so here's all of the different things, you know, your hobby supplies like your drills and wire and dowels and X-Acto knives, tweezers, files, all sorts of things, super glues, sand, rocks, all of the different kinds of flock and turf. Oh my gosh. Little tufts, little spray paints, all of the different paints, paint brushes, distilled water to clean the brushes. And all of these figures. Look at all of these figures. These are all Chaos Wars Ironwind medals. Spent like $1,000 on that Kickstarter, and here's all of that. Now, I'm like not, regretting it. This drawer sucks. I'm not regretting it because I got my name. I got to name one of those figures, and I also got all of these really cool posters. All right, so anyway, also a couple chairs down here in case we need even more chairs. All of these are boards, terrain boards. So they're 2x2. So I've thought about doing Battlefields of Mana on some of those, at least not the ones that have roads or anything scale specific. And there's some ocean boards. We have the Kickstarter pledge for Reaper from their very first Kickstarter. That's just full. Chock full of figures, unpainted, just sitting there, and all these additional add-ons, including this Calidrax, which is a gigantic dragon. I also took out all of the sci-fi stuff and stapled them together. So this was a pack of sci-fi minis. These were as well. And so I just kept those together. And then here's a bunch of Clan War. I picked up a huge lot. Everything in this box and all these figures. Painted Clan War stuff. Oh my gosh. Absolutely love Legend of the Five Rings. That was one of the first novels I ever read, was that novel series for Legend of the Five Rings. Then there's some more sci-fi figures. These are from Alternative Armies. And then lots of old books, Clan War books, Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer books. These miniature cases are full of unpainted figures. And then there's cases of the Crossmaster Arena stuff. There's some gaming paper here, a bunch of little containers. I always use those. Look at all this Dwarven Forge, all these resin sets, like the catacombs and stuff like that. Here is Eslo Terrain, tons of Eslo Terrain. Anytime you see a white box, that's Eslo Terrain. So and all these bags of stuff is all Eslo Terrain. Eslo Terrain is just simply fantastic. Because it comes to you like this. They're a German manufacturer, and they do some of the best pre-finished terrain I've ever seen. I'm going back to them for more 15 millimeter stuff. Most of everything I have of theirs so far has been 25, 28 millimeter. Tubs and tubs of attack wing stuff, and some other bits of terrain, and Dungeons and Dragons game tiles. And then Warlock Tiles. This is where I have all of the Warlock Tiles, I think, in both of these boxes right now. Dungeons and Lasers. I made these walls for myself out of foam bricks for Frostgrave. That's kind of a snowy grass along the bottom. They don't look that good, but one of the spells for Frostgrave is that you could have a wall. So I made 4 of these walls, and this is the exact dimension of the wall. So I thought that was kind of handy, even though it doesn't necessarily look the best. So more Eslo Terrain, like little bridges and stuff, but then also miniature building authority stuff, like these wells and this little blacksmith. And anytime I have a diorama or games with little accessories, this is probably where it comes from. Over here, fences, barrels. Here's a bunch of dungeon torture equipment that I've shown in previous videos. Oh my gosh, just so much miniature terrain. There's boats, hedges, fences, walls, and then all these mats. Look at all these rolled up game mats. Now, some of these are for actual games, but some of these are just rolled up mats. Some of them are double-sided, so you can play games on them, and they're all different sizes. There's 3x3, 4x4, 6x4 is the big one. Then I have my Citadel Realm of Battle game board, flocked and ready to go. Blue Table Painting finished that for me. And then I always try to get game mats for games that I own, like the Heroes of Terranoth game. That says game mat, but from afar it looked like oatmeal. Sails of Glory ship map, but of course the main thing that catches your eye when you look in here is all of this miniature building authority. That's tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not even kidding. A miniature building authority. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not that much. I just know that I spent thousands on multiple Kickstarters of theirs, and also have spent so much on their website, on third-party sites. So yeah, it's gotta be. It really honestly has to be, especially when you think that a single townhouse is like $70 or something like that. Just do the math. And then all these castle walls. Of course, with Miniature Building Authority, you can get into it all. So lift out floors, lift off roofs, and I have some cigar box battle mats. I think these are 3x3. Got those for Frostgrave, since they're kind of wintry themed. Trees and other little bits of terrain, like in this box down here. You probably can't really see it, but that I've done videos on this before too. I think this was GameMat.eu terrain, dungeon terrain. Then there was this sci-fi factory walls terrain, and all these little bowls for tokens are down here. And then all these other little containers, all this Eslo Terrain. Again, thousands and thousands of dollars in Eslo Terrain. And just some of my favorite Miniature Building Authority pieces are, of course, the Wizard's Tower. And these are so collectible because, they don't redo them all that often, if ever. So a lot of what you see here isn't even available on the website anymore. And then, of course, all the Dwarven Forge stuff. So a lot of this is Dwarvenite and miniatures, just tubs of it. I try to keep it organized. So dungeon accessories, sewer walls, and sometimes even subdivided down there and all the way to the floor. You can't even see it behind all this stuff is more tubs. There's a video a little while back about what's in that box, if you want to check that out. It's literally titled What's in the Box, I think. All of this WizKids pre-painted dungeon accessories, wargaming, dressing, all that kind of stuff. And all of these our boxes here are full of Mage Knight, loose Mage Knight figures, separated by faction. So there's Atlantis, and there's a bunch of other ones. This is an unlimited demo kit. Can you believe it? Now, what is this? This is a complete set of something. If it maybe minions or something like that, a complete set of minions. And yeah, that again goes all the way to the floor, way back there, just full of thousands of Mage Knight figures. And of course, some of the big, larger figures and dungeons pieces. And again, this computer's really handy. I think we kind of talked about this before, for just random things. And I just can't get over these little tiny microscopic dice. Oh, I love them, even though I never take them out of this drawer. And promos, all sorts of Dice Tower promos. I haven't even cataloged all of these. Oh my gosh, that's a Century Spice Road promo. I need this. Typically, like I've even gotten to the point where even if I have the game, I haven't put the promo with the game because there's just hundreds and hundreds of promos. And then down here, I have Frostgrave stuff. This was all my Frostgrave stuff. Reference tables, spell sheets, clipboards. And then this is my little chest of prototypes of games that I have designed. Rough drafts and stuff typically go in the chest, but I think there's some finished ones in there as well. So for example, I love this Tunnels and Trolls Game Master notebook because it's a 3D binder, 3-ring binder, but it pops out like that. So it also doubles as a Game Master screen. How cool is that? And then you can, turn the pages. But yeah, this was my Game of Arrows and Blades Underground. And that had the rules as well as the stats and the bestiary. And here was the dungeon. And this is the smaller version of that huge dungeon of mine you may have seen that was covered with all that black poster board. This was the smaller version of that, and I have all the rooms numbered there. And when someone goes into one of those rooms, you just turn to the right page. So there's room 1, and it tells you what's in there. Room 2, 3 tells you everything you need to know. And then some player handouts for what equipment does and treasures you might find and whatnot. So this whole binder is nothing but of Arrows and Blades Underground. And then this, we just looked at this not long ago. This is Dicey Depths. Remember when I was doing all those solo games of Dicey Depths? So here's my player reference sheet. Here are my initiative cards and stat cards for the monsters. And then here are the actual rules and some notes I took, some ideas I took, graph paper in case I wanted to graph out the thing. Someone reached out to me and came up with some ideas for healers and stuff. I haven't actually incorporated any of that into my game. I think they also came up with a reference sheet. I have not incorporated any of that into mine, but of course, then again, I haven't played mine in quite a while since those videos. And then in here, it's just a bunch of like prototype stuff. So here's old cards for Battlefields of Mana that are now outdated. So like the Siege Engine and yeah, that's another Siege Engine. Mana Shard Cannon. Mercenary Crossbowman. So I put all this stuff in here. These are all my rough drafts of all my rules. Oh, here's a big thing of all my old stat cards. Most of this on top is Battlefields of Mana, but then you get down here and look at this. Here are the rules for Shadows and Gold. Check my YouTube channel for Shadows and Gold. Oh, I love this picture. I took it when I had that whole miniature building authority city laid out. And this was the first rule set I believe I did that actually had pictures in it, which is kind of funny. About a thief pillaging a city. And those are kind of short rules, short and sweet. Of course, I've done other games like Dungeon of Demise, of Arrows and Blades, the original version. This was the Dungeon of Death. Rule sheets, and then down in here there's more notes and stuff. So this chest is just full of older games that I designed. Look at all this, all these old handouts and rules and stuff. Oh yeah, Shadows of Stoldark. That was another little game that I created. So that's what's all in that chest with all of this stuff. And actually, I thought, that Dicey Depths game would be good to play online. So I actually, and also in person too, with more of a role-playing flavor. So I grabbed all the figures that you would need and put them in this box with some dice. So there's dragons and orcs and skeletons and stuff. And at least then, players who want to actually see the stuff happening on the table can. And so that's there. And then a bunch of other things in here, Warhammer stuff. This box is full of multiple copies of Warhammer Quest, because when Warhammer Quest was first announced, I foolishly was like, oh, well, it'll probably end up being worth as much as an original Warhammer Quest, so I better grab multiple copies of it. Well, I haven't even looked, but I doubt that it's anywhere near that. But there's a couple sealed copies in there. Some painted alternative army figures in here. These are like little micro machine cars in here. Foreground kits. I still have more foreground kits in here. Here's a bunch of battle mats. I have a couple of these game board battle mats that actually fold out like a game board from Wizards of the Coast, which are great. Pathfinder flip mats in there too. A bunch of these because they were like $5 when Toys R Us was going out of business. So I grabbed a bunch of those, a bunch of other toys, and all that Battleclaw stuff. And Mattel sent me the YouTubers kit because that was my goal when I was doing all that Battleclaw stuff. I saw some other YouTubers with less subscribers than me get sent these kits, and I was like, well, I want one of those kits. So I did a bunch of Battleclaw videos, and sure enough, it caught Mattel's attention. They sent that to me. This kit contains one of everything in the game: figures, cards, everything. So I had to get that. That was just so cool. That Mighty Beans phase I went through. This thing here is just full of different kinds of miniatures. Here is a fantasy trip adventure thing from one of those Kickstarters. Again, I have not kept up with that, so that was the last one that I've gotten of those. This is full of World of Warcraft figures for the miniatures game they had. Here's all of my different pouches from the Dwarven Forge Kickstarters. They gave you a tote bag kind of thing. Then we have Mage Knight castles and some other terrain. This is the first piece of terrain I ever got. It is so old. From the early 2000s, 2001. I think it was made by Citadel. Of course, the bottom has nothing on it. A big chunk of it broke off because it's foam-based, but it's still pretty sturdy. And I can probably just paint over that. It looks like it was cut pretty cleanly. But yeah, so back in my early Mage Knight days, I was 12 years old, 2001, playing Mage Knight with my friends at school. And this was the first piece of terrain that I ever bought from my friendly local game store, and I still have it. Can you believe it? Of course, knowing me, I never get rid of anything, so I should have everything. Foreground dungeon stuff. I got that for Frostgrave. That box up there has a bunch of Dragomons. Have you ever heard of Dragomons? Go look that up. That was another random little game that was sold at like Target and stuff. There's a bunch of containers in there because I always need containers. Then remember I did all those Creature Forge unboxings. I just did one video of an unboxing. I still have like 5 more of these Creature Forge booster things unopened. Bunch of Dice Masters. Never even got into Dice Masters, but I was buying everything for the Dungeons and Dragons version of Dice Masters. Dwarven Forge City stuff is in there. Attack Wing stuff is in here. A lot of this is more capsules for the machines. There's the Fantasy Trip. I want it all sealed box. We saw the Fantasy Trip Deluxe Edition outside there because I got multiples. I got that one to like tinker with, and then this one to keep sealed. These dungeon work terrains. I think I have a video on what those are. 1991, I picked up some of those here and there over time. More Mage Knight booster cases, so there's even more unopened Mage Knight cases. Down in here, you can't even see, but there's a bunch more boxes of stuff, including what's behind here. You can kind of see those are all Battletech Hex terrain, and that's old Hex terrain from like the 90s. All right, come on, refocus. There we go. And then a bunch of Dwarven Forge over here. A bunch of miscellaneous way in the back there. Can I do this? What will this do? Look at that. Ooh, I love that. I didn't even realize I could turn my light on. But there's all sorts of like trading card games and stuff back there. And this whole box is full. I got a lot of like 15,000 Magic the Gathering cards or something. They're all in that box still. A bunch of older games. Here are all these clever paper kits. I got a boatload for Christmas of more clever paper kits to put together, including this huge castle. What else? And then there's that Dirt Cheap Dungeons castle stuff. And my other Dirt Cheap Dungeon stuff, I keep them in these totes. Of course, that was an Ogre Designers edition back over there. Lots more Dwarven Forge stuff over here, and Battle Lore 2nd edition stuff, and some older games that I didn't have room for out there. There's my one and only set of sci-fi Dwarven Forge. Here is a kit. So I have a couple of these. So here's an Arcane Legions demo kit. Remember Arcane Legions? They had some pre-painted figures, but mostly they were all in sprues as well. Whatever happened to this Halo game? I never even really opened that box. This is pre-painted, like, I don't know, 15 mil or 10 mil Civil War figures. Oh my gosh, I love it. I got a whole army of Confederate, whole army of Union. I wish they came out with a fantasy game and sold huge armies of pre-painted, keyword pre-painted. I know there's, what do you call it? Epic scale Warhammer Fantasy. No. I want pre-painted epic scale fantasy. That's what I want. So that was cool, but then I also have this unlimited demo kit for Mage Knight as well. So I love like things like that, demo kits and stuff. All right. Let's see, anything else? I mean, there's tons of stuff way down here. There's more Arcane Legions back down in there. There are boxes full of old promos way down at the bottom there. Oh yeah, and I mean, there's obviously stuff on these shelves down back behind all of this stuff. So there's so much stuff that's just buried there. It's insane. Here is something I cut out of one of the first things of Dwarven Forge I ever got. It was like for Christmas or something one year in the early 2000s. My parents got me a set of Dwarven Forge. As like a 12 or 13-year-old, I see this image and I basically wet my pants. Are you kidding me? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Years later, when I was getting rid of the box, yeah, so here's the code. It was a Master Maze 002 Room and Passage set. And I cut this image out of the box when I was getting rid of the box. I don't even have any of my original Dwarven Forge stuff. How do you lose Dwarven Forge? The only piece of the original Dwarven Forge stuff I have is this. This one door, and you can tell it's original because these are the metal. These are metal posts for the door, which of course opens. But all that Dwarven Forge stuff. I love that this has a light on it. I should have been using this from the very beginning. And you can see, yeah, there's My Little Pony cards. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Some bags. There's more Mage Knight way down there. Again, all of these boxes have terrain in it. So like there's a gallows. It's all painted terrain. There's a watchtower in multiple parts. That's all Eslo Terrain. So you can just imagine how many different pieces of terrain there are. All this stuff. It's just absolutely insane. I walk in here and I lose my mind. Look at all this. I mean, there's so many things. It's just crazy. These ogre figures, dragons, this little cage up on a thing that's from Foreground. I base it like this. I based it kind of wintry. And then these little tokens are hilarious. These were from one of the first Dice Tower Kickstarters. You know, if you're in first place, or if you're pretty lucky, or if you're always being targeted by other players, you can hand them that chip. There's a couple first player markers. Here's someone, if they're whining, if they're constantly complaining about their low die rolls or everyone's ganging up on them, throw them this crybaby token. Couple victory point tokens. Someone is taking forever. Come on. There's a snail token or a turtle token. I'm not exactly sure what the milkshake one's for. There's another target, and I think that's pretty much it. Or a zap token. I just love these little tokens. Just, you know, throw them at someone if they're being a baby. All right, so that is that. Oh, I have this bumper sticker for Tunnels and Trolls. I'd rather be fighting orcs. I want to put that on my car so bad, but my car right now is a Kind of a lame car. I'm going to get the new Ford Bronco. Have you guys heard of that? I cannot wait. I have a reservation for a first edition reserved within the first couple hours of the initial launch. So I believe I'm locked in. Things are looking good. And so is this game room, to be brutally honest. Even though this is like a supplementary game room. We got stuff basically in every corner. All right, so that was all this. Can you believe it? And if you ever want to know more about something, just ask. As long as it's not like a where can I find this kind of thing, if it's like, I don't know, or the pricing of something. But that's it, folks. This is 2021. Of course, I'm filming this not to ruin anyone's perception of what's going on, but it's actually like December 29th right now, I believe it is. But it's close enough. I want this to go up on January 1st. So here we go, around the room one final time. Hopefully I'll be able to play some more games later in 2021. All right, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it. And until next time.
Also,
Interesting.
stop watching this video and start playing games.
Go have some fun.
Now.
Yes. And welcome to a world of wonder.
Yeah!
So many games.
Awesome.
So many games.
It's a game.
If you want to play so many games.
Okay.